Welcome to The Bottom Line with John Harrison, your tour guide through all things financial. Build out your financial skill set with crucial knowledge and tactics and easy to follow answers to all your essential money questions. And now, your host, certified financial planner, ordained minister, multi-published author, and president of Aspire Financial Advisors, John Harrison.
Hello, and welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm John F. Harrison, your host. And in this episode, I want to begin by giving you an update on the issue of student loan forgiveness. Remember that? 6 months ago, that was all anyone could talk about, but now it's not so much in the news. However, the subject actually is coming to a head, and there are some significant developments that will be happening shortly. Now, we've talked about loan forgiveness here on The Bottom Line before, and I know that people have very strong feelings, both pro and con. Some people think it's a great idea, some people are very much against it. Regardless of how any one of us feels, it's either going to happen or not going to happen, and we'll know one way or the other in the next few weeks. So we want to look at what's going into the decision, what looks like is going to happen. And I also want to point out that regardless of whether loan forgiveness goes through or not, many people are going to have to resume making student loan payments, the ones that have been on pause for so long and we've kind of forgotten about in our budgets. Those are going to be coming back just a few months from now, so you'll need to know about all of those things. So we'll talk about what's going on, what's driving the issue, how it looks likely to turn out, and we'll cover what it means for you and your budget right after we take care of this little bit of business, and we'll come back on the other side, dive in. See you then.
People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
Welcome back to The Bottom Line, and we're talking about student loan forgiveness. And you will recall that President Biden's Education Department made the executive decision to forgive a certain amount of debt for people who have outstanding college loans. The amount was up to $10,000 per person and could be as much as $20,000 if a person had been a recipient of Pell Grants. So 26 million people applied online for student loan forgiveness, and 16 million were already approved for the loan forgiveness program when it all kind of came grinding to a halt because of multiple lawsuits that were filed against it. There were many parties who believed that neither the president nor the Education Department had the authority to simply unilaterally wipe out someone's debt, and they felt that it required an act of Congress, the approval of Congress, to essentially pass a law making that the case. So they sued. The government, on the other hand, maintained that it did have the right to do what it did, and they cited something called the HEROES Act of 2003. HEROES Act is an acronym for Higher Education Relief Opportunities for Students Act of 2003. It was passed by the 107th Congress when George W. Bush was president, and the legislation and its subsequent amendments gave the Secretary of Education the right to waive loan requirements in times of military operations or undefined national emergency. And so the argument is going to end up being over what constitutes national emergency that allows for this. The government says, well, COVID was it. Those who are suing say, well, that wasn't the original intent of the law, and it's going to be up to a court to decide. And the court in particular is the Supreme Court of the United States, and they will decide whether or not President Biden and the Education Department, or working through the Education Department, had the right to do this in the first place. So they're going to settle the argument, and they have indicated that they are going to rule on this by the end of June. So not later than June 30th, we will know if the Supreme Court of the United States said, yes, that was a valid thing to do, and all that loan debt they promised you to forgive is in fact forgiven, and the program will go forward. Or they will say, nope, they couldn't do that. It takes an act of Congress. So you all got your hopes up, but that's not happening, at least until Congress acts on it. We won't know until they rule, but they will rule by June 30th. And because it's the Supreme Court, that will be the end of it. There's no appeal from their ruling. So whether they say yes or no, the situation will end and be resolved by June 30th. If the plaintiffs win, the people suing, then there will be no forgiveness, and you will owe just as much as you did before all of this even came up. If the government wins, then the $10K in forgiveness, depending on how much debt you have, your debt up to $10K, $20K for Pell Grant recipients, then your debt will be reduced by the amount of the forgiveness, and you'll have saved a bunch of money. If you, again, owe more than $10K, it's just the $10K that it reduces. You'll still have to pay the balance of your loans. But again, whatever the Supreme Court decides by the end of June, that will be it. There is no appeal. But that brings up a separate subject. Since COVID, the Education Department has suspended the requirement that people make payments on their existing loan. It's the pause. And what I'm here to tell you today is that the pause is about to end. The government has extended the pause a total of 8 times since it was first enacted. And the Department of Education has announced it will not be extended again. There will be no further pauses. So 60 days after June 30th, or 60 days after the court rules, whichever comes first. In other words, if they rule June 15th, then the pause will end 60 days after June 15th. If they wait to the last minute and rule by June 30th, then the pause will end 60 days after June 30th. But 60 days after the 30th or the court ruling, whichever comes first, payments will resume. In practical terms, that means payments will likely resume in September, because that's 30 days after the end of June. You get through July, you get through August, then September is the month the payments would start. And that's regardless of what the court does with the issue of forgiveness. Again, the pause is a separate issue. So whether the court says the forgiveness stands or the forgiveness can't happen, whatever payments are left for you to make will have to resume 60 days from the end of June at the latest. So here's a practical question for you. Do you need to rethink your budget? And I ask that because many people, having gone several years without the college loan payments and then being primed to think that those payments are going to go away either in whole or in part, may be a bit surprised to find that their payments are about to restart. And maybe the money that was dedicated to payments has found other places to go in your budget. Maybe it's turned into a car payment, or maybe it's turned into a higher rent payment, or whatever it is that you're you're doing with that money. But now would be a good time to take a fresh look at your budget, certainly no later than June the 30th, because your payment for whatever loan balance is left, regardless of what the court says on forgiveness, will start again beginning in September. So that's something to be aware of. I wanted to start there because, again, the news hasn't really been focusing on this. It's sort of been lost in the shuffle of the news cycle. But these important decisions and these changes are coming up on us pretty quickly. So you want to make sure that you're not caught flat-footed, that if you have payments that are going to resume, there's space in your budget from which to pay them, and that you are prepared to begin paying. And you'll be getting a letter from your loan servicer, probably pretty early in July, the latest, letting you know that this is coming. But this is coming. So that's the deal with student loan forgiveness. It's going to be on everybody's top of mind again soon, and you'll need to make plans for how to go forward from there. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. We talked about the student loan thing. I'd like to talk now about another issue that's near and dear to my heart, and that's the issue of personal savings. The Federal Reserve released the results of their most recent study on how Americans are doing in terms of saving money. And the numbers are pretty interesting. The median savings for people over the age of 32 is $3,200. Now, let me back up for a minute and explain the median thing, because usually when you see these statistics, you see averages. And averages are a little misleading because they can be skewed by the very high outliers or the very low outliers. It doesn't tell you how most people are doing. So the median is a better statistic because it's the 50th percentile. It's the midpoint. It's the dollar figure at which exactly half of Americans have more than that and half of Americans have less than that. So median is a perhaps more useful number than average. I'm going to give you both, but I'll show you how far apart they are. So for people from 32 to 54, the median household savings is $3,200. The average is $11,200. So big difference between median and average. For people aged 55 to 64, the median is $6,400, while the average is $57,800. This is accumulated household savings. You'll notice a couple of things there. First thing you might notice is that the median savings in both age groups are well below what we advise people to have for an emergency fund. An emergency fund is money you set aside for all those little unexpected things that life throws at you, like the transmission breaks in your car, or your furnace and your hot water heater die at the same time, or you have an accident and break a tooth and need some dental work. Any of these things that are completely unexpected and that cost a lot of money. You have an emergency fund for that. And we tell people that depending on your employment situation, an emergency fund appropriate amount is 3 to 6 months worth of your normal bills. So if your bills are $4,000 a month, your emergency fund should be about $12,000 if you're shooting for 3 months, or $24,000 if you're shooting for 6. How do you tell the difference? Well, if you have steady employment, job security, 3 months for most people is sufficient. If you have seasonal employment, or you're self-employed, or you're a business owner, or your income is in any way volatile, then 6 months is a better figure, 3 to 6 months. So for most people, $3,200 is not 3 months worth of their monthly bills or even close to that figure. So the median household does not have enough money for an emergency fund. And this is true in both age groups. The median fund for those 55 to 64 is $6,400. And again, that's less than 3 months of most people's bills. So the median household does not have enough savings for a basic emergency fund. And 1 in 4 households has no savings at all, no household savings at all. So we want to fix that if we can. If you are on the lower end of savings or lower than you would like to be, I'd like to give you some ideas of how to raise your savings level and do it pretty quickly. Do it in a way that works. So we'll dive into the how of having more savings when we come back from this short break. Stay tuned.
Do you want to make a bold statement? Do you want to stand out in the room? Check in with us before you step out. On-demand designs and timeless statement pieces are here to channel your impeccable style from this season to the next. You can have it all, so go get it and be confident when you do. Jewels on Demand, inspiring elegance and confidence.
Welcome back, and we've been talking about savings, the savings rate, how people are doing with the savings, and the Federal Reserve study showed us most people don't have enough savings even for a basic emergency fund. The median figures, the figure at which half the country has more and half the country has less, the median figure was $3,200 for people in their 30s and $6,400 for people aged 55 to 64. And so we added the fact that 1 in 4 households has no savings at all. So I'm probably safe in saying that many of the people who are hearing this broadcast have less savings than they want, or at least less savings than they need. If that's you, then let's talk about ways to get your savings rate up so that you are more secure, so that an emergency does not throw a monkey wrench into your budget and mess up your finances and have you juggling things and robbing Peter to pay Paul. How do you get more savings? Well, for starters, you set a goal. Ask yourself, what is the savings for? Is it your emergency fund? Is it a house down payment? Is it the cash purchase of a car? Whatever it's for, write down what you want the savings for. Maybe there are more than one goal that you're trying to fund. But have in your head what it's for, so it's not just an abstract, I want more savings, but I want to accumulate for a particular reason a certain amount of money. And that's the other piece of it. You want a target goal, a target dollar figure. Saying, I gotta save some money is not a goal. Saying, I will save $12,000 by this date next year, that's a goal, because it has the elements that it needs. It has a dollar figure and it has a time frame. And the first thing I mentioned, a reason for wanting it, is your motivator. It's the reason you'll do the work. It's the thing you'll remind yourself when you're tempted to skip savings this week and go out to an expensive meal. You have your motivator, what it's for, but you have a dollar amount in mind and you have a time frame in mind, and that makes it a real goal. Once you have the goal, then break it down. I generally tell people do bite-sized pieces. It's easiest if you make it line up with your pay cycle. So if you're paid monthly, then you want to save X a month. If you're paid every 2 weeks, then you want to save X dollars every 2 weeks. Paid weekly, save weekly. Make it line up with when money comes in. Every time money comes in, sit down and attack your savings goal. And that brings up an important point. Whatever your goal is, start today. Everybody means to get around to saving more money. Everybody plans to save more money as soon as insert obstacle of the week. As soon as I finish this project, I'm going to start saving more money. As soon as I get my cost of living increase at work, I'm going to save more money. As soon as raises come through, as soon as whatever it is, as soon as I finish furnishing the house, as soon as I get my car repaired, don't make it as soon as something. Make it now. Even if you have to start smaller than you ultimately want to. The only way it ever happens is if you start now. Otherwise, it just remains something you intend to get around to, and you'll be surprised how quickly the weeks and the months and the years fly by, and you're like, wow, I meant to do this and I haven't done it yet. Don't get caught in that trap. Make your goals now. So you're going to start now. You're going to start per pay cycle. What do? Well, one of the easiest things to do is keep a budget. Keep track of what you spend and where you spend it, and decide if you like it. If there are places you can save money, that funds your savings goals. Example, do I need all these either cable channels or streaming networks that I pay for? You got half a dozen streaming networks. Is it worth it to you to watch all that? Or is it, I go out to eat more than I care to. Maybe I can limit myself to eating out, say once a month. It would feel like a treat as opposed to just something I do all the time. And the money that used to go to that can go to my savings goals. Look at your budget. And budgeting is easier than it used to be. You don't have to be sitting at your desk looking at a spreadsheet on a laptop or a desktop computer. You don't have to have a piece of paper with every expense scribbled in it. Now, if you have a phone on your person, you can run your budget. There are programs like Mint or Rocket Money. These are websites that let you put your budgeting in and update them in real time on the fly. And it makes it very easy and very convenient to keep track of where your money goes, decide what you don't like, decide what you want to change. So consider those. I mentioned two, Mint and Rocket Money. There are others, but those are good places to start looking. If you're a real cell phone based person, you text everybody, you always have your phone on you, then that might be the easiest way for you to handle the whole budgeting thing. Understand how your budget compares to the norms. The Fed puts out statistics every year about where most people's money goes and how much they're spending in different categories. Housing tends to take up the biggest chunk of our budget, more than 30% for the median family. You might consider living more beneath your means. For instance, if you're a renter, are there less expensive places to live than the place you're living now? Is it worthwhile for you to look into that? Most of us tend to spend on our housing all that we can afford to, but we don't necessarily have to do that. And if you find yourself unable to save money, then I suggest that you don't do that. Now, you don't need to consider adjusting your housing situation if you can find enough money in the other areas of your budget. But if you can't, nothing should be off limits, including what you're spending on housing. The second biggest thing that we spend, 30.5% of the median family's income, is devoted to paying various taxes. We did a whole episode on taxes a little while ago. Do what you can to minimize your tax hit, and that's instant money that will power your savings goals. So cutting expenses is perhaps the quickest route to creating savings for most people. But the other side of that, the flip side of that, is can you earn more money? Some people will pick up a side gig. Some people, if they're hourly employees, will try to rack up some overtime. I actually like that best because it does not require a second commute, does not require separate job-related expenses. A little overtime can be good for the hourly. And if you are salaried and you can't talk the the boss into a raise. Maybe a side gig for a specified period of time is the way to go. But beware of this one thing. Side gigs and even extra overtime at work tend to come with their own expenses, i.e. if you have a second job that you go to, then you're going to have gas expenses for that job. If you are working a lot of hours, you may have less time at home to do things like cook, so you end up eating out more because you're working the second job, and so you're spending some of what that job is bringing in ways that you otherwise would not be spending it. So make sure that a second job is in fact a net positive. Remember the effect of taxes. If you are in, let's say, a 22% federal income tax bracket, then when you earn $1, you've only made 78 cents net of the federal income tax, and that does not count state taxes, other things that might come into play. So figure what your net gain from the employment will be, deduct from it any additional expenses you will incur, like commuting expenses, tolls, food eaten out, lunches eaten in the cafeteria or wherever because you don't have as much time as you used to for cooking, and figure out if at the end of the day it's a net positive and you're in fact adding real money that can be added to your savings budget. If it's not, then it's not worth doing. But if it is, it's a net positive and you have the time and you have the energy, then by all means go for it. The number one expense item that most people cut, eating out, credit card interest, and clothes, 1, 2, and 3. Paying down your debts saves you money in interest that you're no longer spending, and the money that used to go to credit card interest can now go directly to your savings. So think of those things. Give yourself a specific goal that says, I want to accumulate X dollars by X date, and I'm going to do that by saving X dollars per pay period, and I'm going to find the X dollars per pay period either by reducing my expenses, cutting my clothing budget, cutting my eating out budget, cutting all the different things that we talked about it, or I'm going to do it by earning more money. I'm going to get a raise, or I'm going to work hourly overtime, or I'm going to work a second job or pursue a side gig on the weekend, the whole gig economy thing. Whatever you do, I'm going to cut my expenses, or I'm going to increase my earnings, or both, and devote that money to my targeted savings rate so that by the end of the period, I have accumulated everything that I need. You know, the neat thing about saving money is it becomes fun. The feeling that, you know, I need to save more can give you a sense of pressure. It can be not enjoyable because you look at your lack of savings and you feel kind of vulnerable. But the feeling that, hey, I am actually accumulating money, this is working, I am saving more, it becomes fun, because what the accumulated money does is give you choices and gives you a buffer against life's uncertainties. If you find you have to move all of a sudden, you don't have to wonder where's the money going to come from to pay a moving company or to rent a truck or to do any of the things that you have to do. You've got savings. If there's a car repair, if there's a sudden need to spend money on something medical, you've got it. So this is to get you in that situation, and I promise you, once you get rolling, you will enjoy the process. So we did some basic things today, but it's important that we go back to these basics once in a while, because in all the talk of finding the world's greatest mutual fund or discussing whether cryptocurrencies are going to be a big thing again, It's the basic habits, like having enough savings, that are going to make or break your finances, not finding the next Bitcoin or investing in the next Amazon.com. You got to get the basics down first. So we're going to wrap this up, put a bow on it, and tell you how you can get more information when we come back after this break, and I'll see you on the other side.
The Well Jamaican Restaurant, located at 55 Mazio Drive in Randolph, Mass., where good food and fellowship meet daily. Check out our variety of fresh and tasty entrees and sides from our menu or the website, thewellja.com, like our jerk chicken, oxtails and rice, seafood, desserts, and more. With our drinks and juices made fresh daily, you have the option to dine in or take out. We can also cater your special event, or you can book our private dining room and let us host your special event. At the Well Jamaican Restaurant, we pride ourselves on providing superior quality food and beverages, and of course, great customer service. Next time you're in the mood for Jamaican cuisine, meet us at the Well Jamaican Restaurant. Become part of the family. Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. The Well, where good food and fellowship meet daily.
Well, we've come to the end of another episode, and I want to conclude with this. You know, sometimes the best thing you can do for your financial situation is to talk to somebody about it. Get a second set of eyes and ears on it, get some good professional advice, and we are happy to talk to you about whatever topic impacts your finances, whether it's working through your budget or figuring out how to cut your tax bill, or figuring out whether individual stocks or cryptocurrencies or bonds or whatever belong in your portfolio and how to choose which one. All of those things from A to Z and everything in between, we're happy to talk to you about at your convenience. You can reach out to us. Call me on my office phone, 978-775-5435, or drop me a note via email, john.harrison@aspirefa.com. Either way, I'll be happy to hear from you. You can also reach out via either of those methods to request specific topics for us to talk about here when we get together. If there's things you'd like to hear about, let me know. I'd be happy to share them. So that's what we've got for today, and I want to end with the reminder I always give you. It might be a long way from where you are to where you'd like to be financially, but you can get there from here. You just need a little direction for the journey, and that's the bottom line.